The 2021 draft class has been making statements across the entire NBA all season, including last. With Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green finally getting their teams to the postseason, Alperen Sengun being a part of that as well, Jalen Johnson being in most improved conversations back-to-back years, Franz Wagner making his second postseason appearance, Austin Reeves being on contending teams with the Los Angeles Lakers. There is so much talent across this 2021 draft class that maybe it's time to do a 2021 NBA redraft with some of the best prospects. Let's do it. I cannot wait until about 5-6 years down the line when we look at this 2021 NBA draft class and we see how much talent is really in it. You have all these all-star level type of players when you look at Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, Franz Wagner, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Johnson, and others. And then you have top-tier role players like Jalen Suggs, Austin Reeves, and Trey Murphy that could be very good complementary type of players to championship teams. So this is just going to be a fun exercise in between the playoffs that I feel like we can do together that would be really fun. So let's get started. Now, with the first overall pick, I'm still going to have the Detroit Pistons landing Cade Cunningham. I think this is the real year where people got to see how good Cade Cunningham really is, because in my opinion, this is what he was doing towards the end of last season. Towards the end of the last season, he was averaging about 24 points per game and 8 assists, and he was really turning down his turnovers just a little bit to where he was not being a detriment to his team during that period. So I think Cade Cunningham, with his pull-up shooting, his pick and roll work, and his playmaking out of pick and roll is also really good. Now, he is also a little turnover prone still at this moment, and he isn't the best finisher, but showing what he's shown in the playoffs in his first year against a really good, really experienced New York Knicks team is what shows me that he can be the number one on a really good playoff team, or maybe even a championship team, if he can get better as a finisher and turn down those turnovers a little bit more. And the offensive upside is really what would give me the edge over Evan Mobley, which is, I think these are the two best players in the draft class, Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley. But Cade Cunningham's offensive output, I think, is going to be better than Evan Mobley's throughout their career. And Cade Cunningham, he isn't the best defender, but I think he's good enough to the point where you're not going to be able to have the best time trying to attack him. He's 6'7", he's really strong, he can defend some wings in isolation when he gets switched on them, and he can stick to some guards or some lead guards in very important opportunities as well. So I'm going to be taking Cade Cunningham with the first pick in the draft. Now for the second pick, this is where things get tricky because Jalen Green was taken with this pick in real life. I'm going to be going Evan Mobley. And Evan Mobley has really shown the ability to get better as an offensive player while being a top 3 defensive player in the NBA. With his strength, his lower body strength as well, with his switchability, his portability, his versatility, and also being a ball handler, mismatch attacker, and rim finisher, and transition player, being a grab and go player, a playmaker, a decent spot up shooter. This season, he's doubled his 3-point frequency as it was last year, and he's gotten a lot better with his percentages to where you're going to have to worry about him if he's left wide open. I don't think he's going to be a number one offensively, but he definitely can anchor and take away possessions defensively for a team in the playoffs and raise your ceiling while also keeping you a really high floor in the NBA. So I think Evan Mobley is going to be an all-star. I think he's going to be an all-star for the next 10 years. I think he's going to be one of the better defensive players in the league for the next years to come. So Evan Mobley is going to be my number 2 pick here. Now, with the number 3 pick, after the Cleveland Cavaliers have had Evan Mobley taken from them, I'm going to scroll down in the draft board a little bit, and we're going to take Franz Wagner. I think Franz Wagner is still a work in progress. The jump shot has not come around as much as you would want it to. I think his first few seasons, he was shooting about 36% from 3 on about 4 or 5 attempts a game. Obviously, that has not been what you have wanted it to be these past few years. In the playoffs, he was really bad, and he's part of the reason why the Orlando Magic are one of the worst offenses in the NBA, is because he cannot space the floor. And that is something that the Orlando Magic are going to need. And that's something that one of these guys, whether it's Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner, needs to get better at if they want to be looked at as one of the better duos in the NBA. However, I do think he's a really good ball handler at the wing position. I think he gets to the rim. Relentlessly. And I do think he can play make, and I do think he's a really good defender. So I think Franz Wagner is a really good building piece as a rim finisher, as a defense collapser, somebody that can play make, somebody that can play defense as a very high level. So I do think this is somebody that you can build around. And at number 4, I have the Toronto Raptors still taking Scotty Barnes. I don't think Scotty Barnes has the ceiling that some of these guys do, like a Evan Mobley or a Cade Cunningham, but I do think that there's a lot of things that Scotty Barnes does really well. I think he plays in transition very well. I think he's a really good passer, which is something that does not get the credit that it deserves. I think he's a really versatile defender, playing guys in the post, playing guys in point of attack, being a help side rim protector, and playing passing lanes. And I think that's something that he really sticks out to as well, just being the off-ball player, the versatile roamer for a defense, somebody that can be a really intricate piece to one of the better defensive teams in the league. The Toronto Raptors have been a top 3 defense for the second half of the NBA season, and I think a lot of that, or all of that, has to do with Scotty Barnes and his impact on the defensive side of the floor. He's not the best scorer. He's still very raw as a scorer, but this is somebody that has taken a lot of steps towards progressing as a really good scorer, especially looking into how he came into the NBA. He was really raw, and it did not look like he was going to be a positive offensive player, but with the playmaking, the rim finishing, the driving, the transition play, if he can just get a mid-range jump shot or maybe even a 3-point jump shot, I do think he can be an all-star level player consistently. It's just with all the talent in the NBA, I don't know if I necessarily would bank on that, but this is definitely somebody that you can put in a championship culture and he can progress. This is somebody that you can have on a championship team and he could be very valuable to that championship team. I just don't know if it's him as the number 1 on a championship team like I would trust, or like I would trust defensively for Evan Mobley and offensively for Cade Cunningham. At number 5 for the Orlando Magic, I'm going to be taking Jalen Johnson. And I think Jalen Johnson is somebody that got robbed of a Most Improved Player award just because of his injuries. But when you take a look at the athleticism, it's the first thing that comes out when you look at a guy like Jalen Johnson. Somebody that can play in transition, somebody that could be a great pick and roll candidate, and somebody that's also shooting 38 to 40% on catch and shoot threes. So that's something that you can look out for Jalen Johnson as well. He's also been a really good connective passer for the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, you're going to want to have a starting point guard that can get him easier looks, but this is somebody that can create with the ball in his hand on occasion and necessarily when needed. And when you look at the athleticism, the defensive versatility, the rebounding, this is somebody that was 21, 10, and 5, I believe, before he went down. So I think he could be a very nice, versatile offensive piece, and somebody that could be used as a defensive rebounder, somebody that could be used as a post defender as well, depending on what type of bigs he's defending, somebody that can play passing lanes, somebody that is going to be able to push the pace and keep up with a pushing pace or a pushed pace with an offensive unit that fits around him. So I think Jalen Johnson is a really good pick here at number 5, and I think he's really underrated, man. I think this is somebody that can be an all-star level type of player. It's just we have to get those we have to get his health right to where we would want it to be. But I think Jalen Johnson is well deserved to be a top 5 pick in the 2021 NBA redraft. At number 6, I'm going to have the Oklahoma City Thunder taking Alperen Sengun. Now, Alperen Sengun is tricky. He's very tricky because earlier this season, he's shown a lot of growth as a defensive big, somebody that can protect the rim and rebound at a very high level. He's very isolation centric to where he's going to have the ball in his hand to be very effective offensively. He's a really good passer and he has a feel for getting good looks around the rim. He just has trouble converting. And I feel like that is the biggest trouble with his game so far, is just the converting at the rim. I think this year has been one of the worst finishing around the rim seasons percentage-wise for Alperen Sengun. And that's something that I feel as though can be worked on because the looks are there. We just have to get him to convert a lot more. And something that I also don't necessarily love is his portability. If you were ever to put Alperen Sengun on the trade market, I don't necessarily know how many teams are going to just willingly grab for him or willingly try and trade for him, just because you do need an offense built around him for him to be as successful. But we've seen him be successful being a 21, 9, and 5 type of player, to where you can have him be the focal point of your offense and still have a functional offense, if you guys get what I'm saying. For the Golden State Warriors, I have them taking Jalen Suggs. I think Jalen Suggs could be a really good point of attack defender next to Steph Curry. This is somebody who's extremely athletic, and he's an all defensive type of guard in my opinion. This is somebody that's one of the better guard defenders in the NBA. He's a solid playmaker. He's really good in transition. He can get to the rim, but I don't necessarily love his offensive upside. That's why you would love to play him next to a guy like Steph Curry, who can command so much from a defense to where he'll be able to count, or he'll be able to really thrive off of those open looks that he's going to get from Steph Curry. So Jalen Suggs would be my pick here with the number 7th pick. Now up next for the Orlando Magic, we're going to be taking Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves is somebody who's a little deeper on the board because I think he went undrafted. He actually did go undrafted in this draft. Let me find him. Here he is right here. Austin Reeves, I think after showing a bad performance in the playoffs, he was not the best in the playoffs. He just really struggled against the physicality of the Timberwolves defense, and he had a really tough problem taking care of the ball. But I think his on and off ball scoring is something that can be really lethal in the NBA. I think he's gotten a lot better as a passer as well and a shooter, somebody that can attack mismatches on big, somebody that has the quickness and the ball handle to get wherever he wants on the floor, whether that's beyond the arc, whether that's inside the arc in the mid-range or to the rim. So I think Austin Reeves can be a very good complementary offensive player. It's just, I don't know how much I trust him against that physicality, seeing what I saw in the postseason. Now, I do think he can be a lot better. I do think I've seen him make a lot of tough shots in the playoffs and just be a really good tough shot maker in clutch scenarios, playing next to guys like LeBron James and Luka Doncic enough to where I could justify him being a top 10 pick in this draft. At number 9 here, I have the Sacramento Kings taking Jalen Green. And the reason I have Jalen Green going so low is because we still look at Jalen Green's upside and say this could be somebody that could be one of the better scorers in the NBA. I do think he has a very good handle. I do think he's one of the fastest players in the NBA. I do think he's one of the most athletic two guards at his position in the NBA. It's just when his shot is falling, it looks like he could be one of the best players in the NBA. But when it's not, I don't necessarily trust his decision making. I don't trust his defense. And sometimes you can see that he can shoot you out of games. He can shoot himself off the floor. But maybe in a better situation where there's more spacing, you can get him a lot more looks. I think Domantas Sabonis was on the team at the point that we are in right now in 2021 in this 2021 NBA draft. So him playing off ball to a guy like Domantas Sabonis, who I think is better than Alperen Sengun, and having more spacing could give him a better opportunity to thrive a little bit more, but it's still just a very big question with Jalen Green. At number 10, I have the Memphis Grizzlies taking Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy has made a lot of improvements this season, and it's crazy because nobody watched the Pelicans enough to say Trey Murphy has made the improvements he's made this season. You saw him getting to the paint a lot more. I still think he's a very good versatile defender, or he can be a very good versatile defender. He's one of the best shooters in the NBA, and the fact that he's been putting the ball on the floor more with the opportunity that has presented itself to him, I think he could be a very good complementary player, especially next to guys like John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. He would provide that floor spacing that the Memphis Grizzlies need. In transition, somebody that could be a pick and roll candidate, somebody that can create his own shot, but I just don't necessarily know how much his decision making is impacted from the system he's in, or him just having those limitations as a player. But him playing with a guy like LaMelo Ball, he's going to be a lob threat, he's going to be a transition threat, and he's going to be able to get really good looks at the rim with a playmaker like LaMelo Ball. And I think that upside is something that has me picking him this high. He has not looked the best, but having a point guard in LaMelo Ball who's going to forcefully give him the ball and get him the ball in optimal situations, I really like the upside for Jonathan Kuminga here. Up next, I have the San Antonio Spurs taking Josh Giddey, their point guard of the future, standing at about 6'6", 6'7". He's gotten a lot better as a shooter. He's pushed the pace for the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls are leading the league, or one of the league leaders in three-point attempts this season, and they're one of the league leaders in pace this season. And I think Josh Giddey has a lot to do with that, with his half-court scoring and his just versatility as a point guard, somebody that can pass, rebound, and score for himself, and just have the ball in his hand and really create optimal situations for the team around him. I like this for San Antonio here. Up next, the Indiana Pacers are going to be taking Herb Jones, and I think Herb Jones is somebody that is like the perfect playmaker. And as you can see, Domantas Sabonis was not on the Kings yet, so who knows, maybe Herb Jones changes that. But he's gotten a lot better as a three-point shooter, and he's one of the best point of attack defenders in the NBA. Being 6'7" and having that wingspan that could be so detrimental to players, I think that's really good for the Pacers and what they're trying to do. And last but not least, I have the Golden State Warriors taking Moses Moody again. And I think he brings that size, strength, and floor spacing in. And I think he brings that size, space, and strength that you could really use for this Golden State Warriors team. Have somebody that can guard multiple different positions, somebody that can really be a good counterpiece to a starting unit, which we've seen this season. I think Moses Moody bringing that to this Golden State Warriors team was very needed. Now, I don't know how much he would be able to play in this scenario, just like he did in real life, but I think this would be a really good pick for the Golden State Warriors. So ladies and gentlemen, this is my 2021 NBA redraft. I'm only doing the lottery. I'm not going to do all 30 picks, but at number 1, we have Cade Cunningham going to the Detroit Pistons, Evan Mobley going to the Houston Rockets, Franz Wagner going to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Scotty Barnes going to the Toronto Raptors, Jalen Johnson going to the Orlando Magic, Alperen Sengun going to the Oklahoma City Thunder, Jalen Suggs going to the Golden State Warriors, Austin Reeves going to the Orlando Magic, Jalen Green going to the Sacramento Kings, Trey Murphy going to the Memphis Grizzlies, Jonathan Kuminga going to the Charlotte Hornets, Josh Giddey going to the San Antonio Spurs, Herb Jones going to the Indiana Pacers, and Moses Moody going to the Golden State Warriors. If you guys like this type of content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you guys comment which draft you guys would like to see me do next. I'm probably just going to end up doing the 2022 draft right after this. I think that's something that could be very fun as well. And I'm going to be doing small exercises like this in between the playoffs and all off season. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.